August 22, 1776. In the early morning light, a massive British invasion force begins crossing the waters of New York Harbor. 4,000 soldiers, packed into 75 flat-bottomed boats, glide silently toward the shores of Long Island. Moments later, they land at Gravesend Bay. Instead of resistance, they are greeted by cheering loyalists. Food, supplies, and intelligence quickly flow to the arriving army. But this is only the beginning. Soon, this landing force will grow to nearly 20,000 soldiers, the largest overseas army Britain has ever assembled. And its mission is simple: crush the American rebellion. 2 months earlier, British General William Howe arrived off the coast of New York. Transport ships from Britain, Ireland, Germany, and across the Atlantic colonies slowly gathered in the harbor. Warships patrolled the waters. Supplies were unloaded. Thousands of soldiers assembled. Now, the British Empire was ready to strike. Their first objective was clear: destroy the rebel army defending Long Island. If they succeeded, New York would fall. And with it, the American Revolution might collapse before it had truly begun. Across the harbor stood the Continental Army. It was commanded by General George Washington. On paper, he had around 20,000 men. But numbers can be deceiving. Only a handful were well-trained. Elite units like the Delaware Blues and the 1st Maryland Regiment showed discipline. Most soldiers were inexperienced militia. Many lacked proper uniforms. Others didn't even have shoes. Disease swept through the camps. Typhus, dysentery, fever. Nearly 1/4 of the army was sick or absent, and desertion was spreading. At the very moment America needed an army, Washington barely had one. American defenses stretched across a series of wooded ridges known as the Heights of Guan. 6,000 troops under General Israel Putnam held fortifications near Brooklyn. 3,000 more commanded by Generals John Sullivan and Lord Stirling guarded the hills to the south. Their job was to defend the narrow passes through the ridge. The British tried to advance. They would be forced through these choke points. There were 3 main passes. But there was a problem. There was actually a 4th pass. Little known, lightly defended, and British scouts had already discovered it. Dawn. August 27th. The battle begins. 5,000 British soldiers march toward the American lines. Musket fire erupts, cannons roar across the hills. For the first time in the war, the Continental Army faces the British in open battle. And at first, the Americans hold their ground. But the attack in front of them is only a diversion. While the fighting rages, 10,000 British troops march through the hidden 4th pass. Hours later, they emerge behind the American army. Suddenly, Sullivan hears gunfire behind him. The Americans have been outflanked. At that same moment, 5,000 Hessian soldiers charge forward. These German mercenaries have a terrifying reputation. Their discipline and aggression shock the American troops. The American line collapses. Panic spreads. Men begin running for their lives. The battlefield dissolves into chaos. But a few units refuse to break. The 1st Maryland Regiment and Delaware battalions form a desperate rear, numbered 10 to 1. They charge the British again and again. Buying time for their comrades to escape, many will never leave the battlefield. Watching from Brooklyn, Washington is horrified. He reportedly whispers, "Good God, what brave fellows I must this day lose." After the battle, the surviving Americans retreat into Brooklyn. Behind them lies the East River. They are trapped. General Howe could launch an assault and destroy the American army. But he hesitates. Instead, he orders a siege. That decision may save the revolution. On the night of August 29th, under cover of darkness and heavy fog, Washington begins a daring evacuation. Boat after boat crosses the river. Soldiers, cannons, horses, thousands of men. By sunrise, the entire army has vanished. The British wake up to empty defenses. Washington has escaped. The British continue their advance. Before fighting again, they offer peace. British commanders meet with American representatives, including John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. They offer pardons if the colonies surrender, but the Americans refuse. Too much blood has already been spilled. The war will continue. Soon after, Washington abandons New York City. British troops land at Kips Bay, under heavy naval bombardment. American militia panic and run. Washington tries to rally them, but no one listens. Later that day, British troops march triumphantly into New York. Then disaster strikes. On the night of September 20th, fires erupt across New York City. Flames spread rapidly through wooden buildings. By morning, nearly 1/4 of the city has burned. Thousands are left homeless. No one knows how the fire started. But the destruction is immense. Throughout the fall of 1776, Washington retreats again and again. Battles at White Plains and other towns push the Americans farther south. Desertions rise. Morale collapses. Even Washington's leadership is questioned. Then another disaster strikes. In November, British forces attacked Fort Washington. After hours of fighting, nearly 3,000 Americans are captured. The British now control New York. The invasion has been a stunning success, and the rebellion appears to be collapsing. Retreats across New Jersey. British forces pursue him relentlessly. By December, he has fewer than 6,000 soldiers. Half their enlistments will soon expire. Many Americans believe the war is already lost. But Washington is planning something bold. Christmas night, 1776. Washington launches one of the most daring operations in military history. Army crosses the frozen Delaware River in the middle of a snowstorm. The river is wide. The current is strong. Ice floats in the water. But the crossing succeeds. And by morning, the Americans are marching toward Trenton. Just after dawn on December 26th, Washington attacks. American troops storm the town. Artillery blasts through the streets. The Hessian garrison collapses. Within an hour, nearly 900 enemy soldiers are captured. American casualties, just 5 wounded. It is a stunning victory. Days later, Washington strikes again at Princeton. The British are defeated once more. These battles are small, but their impact is enormous. American morale surges. The Continental Army survives the winter. And across the Atlantic, foreign powers begin paying attention. France and Spain see an opportunity to weaken Britain. What began as a colonial rebellion is about to become a global war. And the American Revolution is only just beginning.